Well, everybody doing okay tonight? You might give Pat a call or a card or something. She's really good about taking care of all of us, and she's really been sick for at least a month. And I think this time it maybe really is COVID and so forth. And then I think that Chelledy is starting a new business. She has a formula for hair growth. It's grown 12 inches in 3 days. And so I'm going to invest if y'all want to get in on this early. So I took a look at her tonight and I thought, Chelledy, is that you? So I thought her hair was kind of like Karen's Sunday morning. Anyway, we're still in the book of Hebrews, and we're going to look at a little tiny bit of Hebrews chapter 12 tonight. And most of the book of Hebrews has been arguing, making an argument that living in the kingdom of Christ is far better than returning to the old life that you had in Judaism. And so there's this constant contrast, and tonight there's another contrast. But you have to listen really carefully because it's, and I started just to skip it, but it's too important to skip, and the thought is too important to not examine for just a second. I'm going to begin in verse 18. And I want you to just listen to this first section, what life used to be like for these people kind of under the old law of Moses in the Old Testament. You have not come to a mountain that can be touched and that is burning with fire to darkness, with fire into darkness and gloom and storm, to a trumpet blast or such a voice speaking words that those who heard it begged no further word be spoken to them, because they could not bear what was commanded. And even if an animal touches the mountain, it must be stoned. And the sight was so terrifying that Moses said, I tremble with fear. What in the world is that talking about? What in the world would that be talking about for those people of old in the Old Testament? Well, the Old Testament law kept people afraid all the time. It was a system of fear more than anything else. And it's what he's talking about. If an animal would even touch this holy mountain of God, it had to be stoned. And what he keeps talking about here is that even Moses was terrified by it and would say, I tremble with fear, because the getting in the presence of God or getting close to God was something that was overwhelmingly fearful. And people were told all the time, if you break this law, this is going to happen to you. If you do this, this will happen to you. And even if a child was disobedient to a parent, the old law would say, do what to the child? Drag them outside the city and what? Stone them. And if a woman was caught in the act of adultery, the old law would say, do what to her? Stone her. And it just had language like this over and over again. And I'm often so critical when I read in the New Testament about these Jewish leaders who would add rules to everything and make those rules law and tradition. But maybe part of the reason they added some of those rules were because they were so afraid of breaking the law and what would happen to them. So they lived in a state of fear related to God all the time. Now, is it possible that we too could be coaxed in today to living in a state of fear? Has that ever been kind of the mantra that was spoken from our pulpits? And it was an age or a season of time for a period of years where preachers might continue to use that kind of language against us. Is that possible? And I think it was. I think that we use fear. If you don't do this and you don't do it this way, you don't do that, God's going to kind of zap you. And it's amazing to me how many people today still have that feeling that God's just looking for a way to destroy them. And does anyone like to live like that? If I live like that with my parents, and if I think my parents are always looking for something that I'm doing wrong so that they can point it out and so they can level punishment against me, how happy am I at home? I'm not very happy. And if Greg's football team only hears from him or afraid, if we do any little kind of thing wrong, or if we do, he's just watching. He's just on the sidelines watching every move we make. And if we do anything wrong, he delights in coming and grabs us and works us over in some fashion. If that was the way Greg coached his football team, how many players would enjoy playing for him and would continue to play for him? Not many. But the writer of the book of Hebrews is trying to say, hey, it's not the way it is anymore. We're not in a culture of fear. In the Old Testament, it was a culture of fear. So he says this, but you have come to Mount Zion, to the heavenly Jerusalem, to the city of the living God, and you have come to thousands upon thousands of angels in joyful assembly. And it kind of underlined that thought, joyful assembly, to the church of the firstborn, whose names are written in heaven. And you've come to God, the judge of all men, to the spirits of the righteous men made perfect, to Jesus, the mediator of a new covenant, and to the sprinkled blood that speaks a better word, even better than the blood of Abel. What does that sound like? You're not coming to a mountain where you're just terrified. You're terrified at a voice. You're terrified touching it. You're terrified doing anything wrong. That's not what you're doing. You're coming what? To a new Zion, to a heavenly kingdom, where even the angels are in joyful assembly. I mean, it's a different spirit about everything. Now, does that mean that we're not mindful of being reverent toward God or being respectful toward God or being obedient toward God? Does that mean we're not mindful of that? I mean, I could stand here and say God was, under the Old Testament, they were so afraid, and now God is so loving that nothing matters, just live. That's not what he's saying. We're new creatures. But we don't approach God as though he's waiting to try to find something wrong with us. We approach God in that he has covered us with this righteousness he talks about here, and that he loves us. And so we're joyful and we're happy, but we're also very respectful and appreciative, and we live like it. And we live like it because of what he's done for us and how good he's been to us, not because he's going to zap us in some way. Am I making any sense at all to you? There's a totally different attitude in the new kingdom versus the old way. The old way was based on fear. The new way is based on love and joy and peace. But both ways are obedient to God. Everybody kind of see that? To me, I don't want to preach any sermon. I don't want to teach lessons that make you feel guilty or that belittle you. I want to teach lessons like the New Testament kind of brings forth to us that make us realize who we are, and we live according to the responsibility of who we are. Doesn't that make more sense? That I've been lifted up to a special place, now I'll live like it, rather than being pushed backwards all the time. See to it, therefore, that you do not refuse him who speak. If they did not escape when they refused him who warned them on earth, how much less will we if we turn away from him who warns us from heaven? Why would you refuse the new way of life, is what he's saying. Why would you refuse this? Why would you want to go back to a system where every time you turn around, somebody's watching you, trying to find you doing something wrong and going to do something to you? Now, I work on Donnie all the time, but it's kind of disgusting to me that I can drive from here to Edmond in the morning and I kind of know exactly where they're going to be sitting. The highway patrolman, I know exactly where they're going to be sitting. And they're hiding behind this one grove of trees. And they're watching, and they've got this little gun that they're using, It doesn't shoot bullets, it shoots rays, and they're watching my speed. And it's amazing to me. I got my cruise control set and everything, but it's amazing to me how many people are zipping past there and all of a sudden, whoa, they're slowing down. And why are they slowing down? Because I think those guys get a commission. I think they get a part of the profits. So the more tickets they write, the more money they put in their pocket or something because they're just waiting to get you. Now, if I thought God was like that, I don't know. It wouldn't feel right to me. I would be nervous all the time. But that's not what God is. God says, look what I've done for you. It's a joyful world of a kingdom that I've given to you. Now, live according to the joy. Live according to this new life. And live respectfully and live responsibly, but not from a state of fear, but a state of appreciation. So why would you refuse the new invitation? That's what he's saying. Why would you refuse this new invitation? And I don't know. It seems so plain to me, the beauty of what Jesus has done for all of us and what he's giving to us. And
there's one place he refers to us as part of the royal priesthood. That kind of tells you the way he looks at us. And then when you consider what it costs Calvary's cross to redeem all of it, that kind of tells you where he thinks about us.
Yeah, he calls us in 1 Peter chapter 2 a royal priesthood. We're a holy nation. We're a really special people. We've been pulled out of darkness and we've been put into light, Peter will say. And it's so wonderful what's happened to us. And so we act differently, and we live differently, and we think differently. That's one of the reasons. I mean, I don't know how many people come on Wednesday nights like this. Maybe not as many as that come on Sunday mornings, but it's kind of close in this congregation. There's a big representation here. But when you come, how do you act? How does everybody act when they come here? What's the general tone of what happens when we get here? We're casual, we're happy. Is everybody laughing? Is everybody kind of joking? I mean, I asked Ken Boggs tonight, he sat across from the veterinarian, I said, you got those longhorns dehorned yet? And he didn't even like me suggesting that, But I wasn't serious. I was just having some fun, Okay, what's your question?
I'm not as religious as everyone else is here, more than likely.
You may be.
But I did read the Old Testament once.
Mm-hmm.
And the Old Testament was a vengeful God.
Mm-hmm.
He'd kill you and your mama and your daddy and your brother and your sister if you did him wrong. So how did it change from the Old Testament to the New Testament overnight?
And everybody hear what the question is? Ken said, I read the Old Testament at least once. And he said, I got this impression that God would kill you and your mom and your dad and your children. And then all of a sudden, here I am saying in the New Testament, it's different.
You have to read the last verse of this book, though. Read the last verse of this chapter, and you probably get to it. But, basically it says, for our God is a consuming fire. God hadn't changed. He still requires...
I'm jumping the gun on this.
Yeah.
Well, no, you're not jumping the gun, because what he's talking about is, the book of Hebrews is going to say, look, you're given this opportunity. All the Old Testament is building a picture and building a life. It says this is a law of sin and death. This is a way of sin and death in the Old Testament. So when the good news of Jesus is announced, it's like, it's Peter also will say, it's like the angels in heaven couldn't even figure out how God was going to do this. It was like they were peeking under a curtain to try to see, what is God going to do? And God gives his son, and he invites everyone to come into this new kingdom, And he says, if you come into the new kingdom, you don't ever have to worry about that kind of thing again. I'm going to give you life. But if you don't come into the new kingdom, you better watch out. Because God is a consuming fire, is how it ends. That's right. And if you come into the kingdom, and he said earlier back in chapter 10, and then you walk away from it, it's like you're trotting underfoot Jesus. It's like you're throwing the gift that God gave totally away. And so God says, I'm giving you something that's happy, I'm giving you something that's joyful, I'm giving you something wonderful, but if you refuse it, or if you abuse it, it's worse. It's worse. Now, I'm not going to say that to make you afraid. I'm inviting you to a kingdom of joy, a kingdom of peace. But even this coming Sunday morning, I'll ask the question, because it's the people of Jericho are going to be facing this. The people of Jericho know that they're going to die. They have no doubt. You're going to hear me say they have barred the gates to the city. No one can go in and no one can go out. And they know. So if you knew you were going to die in the next one day, and they don't know if it's 1 day or 2 days or 5 days or 7 days, if you knew you were going to die, would it change anything? If you're going to die right tonight, would it change anything? We're going to talk about that. I mean, if you just spurn it and say, I don't care anything about it, not going to believe it, God hasn't changed, you're right. It's pretty serious. But that's not how we look at it today. We're aware of that. But that's why we keep begging people, asking people, encouraging people, stay with Jesus Christ. Come to him and stay with him. So your question's excellent. Your point's excellent. And it's exactly what we're supposed to be learning out of a passage like this. Okay.
You know, the old law is centered around the idea of thou shalt and thou shalt not.
Mm-hmm.
The new law is all gathered around the idea of grace and mercy. And it's a far better law that we're under now than we were back then. We've got liberties now, a perfect law of liberty is what James refers to it as. There's lots more liberties and we've got more rights to do this, that, and everything and enjoy all of it under the Christian administration than they did under the old law.
And that's what Jesus does in the Sermon on the Mount, which I think is the platform for the whole New Testament. He says, you heard it said, you shall not do this. But let me tell you how it ought to work in this new kingdom. And it's done differently and done more extensively in behavior modification because we love him, because he first loved us.
And I can't help but go to Revelations a little bit on this, especially chapter 3, when he's when Jesus says, well, first of all, he'll say, I stand at the door and knock. Anybody that hears my voice, you're welcome into heaven. It's great. But if you don't, there's always a consequence. I love to read.
And that's why sin is right here. Why would you refuse? Why would you refuse what I'm offering you? Why would you go back and why would you refuse this? Because Jesus is standing there knocking, inviting us. But if you don't open that door and let him in, why would you not do that? That's what he's saying. I know it's confusing, but I just know in the Old Testament they lived under a system of fear and guilt all the time. And you and I are not supposed to live under a system of fear and guilt. We're supposed to live in a system of appreciation and confidence and love. And because of what he's done for us, we change the way we live. We want to be different. It's just a total change in perspective.